Hey guys, it's Danny. Today, a spotlight video. We have an orchid in bloom that is a new species that blooms for me, and this is the beautiful Dendrobium amethystoglossum. Now sadly, I cannot move this orchid from its place and put it against a darker background because, well, I'll show you. I'll give you some close-ups of the orchid so you see how big this orchid is, because it's just one of my biggest orchids. And also, if I move it right now, I risk breaking the cane. So as you can see, this is a cluster flowering Dendrobium. It is a species that is native to the Philippines. The name amethystoglossum comes from the color of the actual flowers, which, if you have a little bit of imagination, resembles the amethyst stone. I personally don't find such a big resemblance. It's kind of pinky, kind of magenta, but you be the judge of that. So this orchid produces a pendant cluster of flowers that can arise from anywhere on the pseudobulb. My display is not a very rich display, but this orchid is known for creating an abundance of flower spikes, each full of 15 to 20 flowers or even more. And you can see what the appeal of this orchid is. Color-wise and maybe shape-wise, it's not necessarily a flashy flower, but put many of these flowers together and you have a really nice show. So being that it is a dendrobium, this orchid produces slender and tall canes. And it's not a tiny orchid, it takes a lot of space. The longest cane that I have on my orchid is around 80 centimeters long. But the good thing is this orchid is not bushy. Even the leaves, they're not very big, so the only space it will take up will be on a vertical. It needs a location that can allow the canes to grow to their full potential. Usually when the canes grow, they are straight, but when the flowers come, they tend to bend a lot. And my cane bended so much that I was forced to stake it, and not only because the stake could not sustain all the weight of the flowers, and mind you, it's just a flower spike on this cane, I had to tie the stake to a more stable structure, so it's pretty heavy. So let's get back to the flowers. As you can see, they are really pretty and dainty. Each individual flower is kind of small, maybe 2 or 3 centimeters long. It's not necessarily very wide. The petals and sepals have this really light pink color, while the lip has a beautiful and striking magenta. And the contrast is actually really pretty. The flower spike is not very long, and overall it can reach to about 20 centimeters, maybe I'm exaggerating, 15-20 centimeters long. Now, the flowers, sadly, are not fragrant. You'll find sources on the internet, especially stores, which say very fragrant orchid. It's really not. And the people who have it, or at least the people that I saw talking about it, don't mention a very strong fragrance. Some specimens can possess a little bit of a fragrance, usually mild. Somebody actually compares it to the fragrance of a mimosa. I cannot say I felt any fragrance from my mimosa flowers when I had them, so maybe it's something with me. I do not detect any type of fragrance on this orchid. If there is one, it's absolutely mild. I don't even feel it when I'm close to the orchid. Now, I purchased this orchid last year in October or November from Ana Maria from Miracle Orchids. It already was growing its new canes. They were not fully mature yet, but they were very close, and this orchid was disturbed from its place. So my main concern was to keep it hydrated because the canes were shriveling a bit too much, and I really wasn't expecting flowers because this is the type of dendrobium which needs a lot of water, a lot of nutrients during the summertime, the growing season, and then come winter it needs a little bit of a rest combined with some cooler temperatures. Now, I did provide the cool temperatures, I did not provide the rest. I didn't fertilize it, but I kept watering it as I was more concerned about the orchid and its establishment. And even so, it managed to produce 3 flower spikes. Now, for Ana Maria, 1 year prior to this, it produced 13 flower spikes. So you can see a little bit of a difference here. When under stress, obviously, it will not bloom as well. But reading forums and people talking about it, it is a really hardy orchid, and pretty much no matter what you do to it, it will continue to hold on, to bounce back, even to bloom, even if it's stressed. So it is one of those hardy orchids, at least from what I can read and my short experience with this orchid. Now, each individual flower is really not long-lived. I think it can last 2 to 3 weeks, but the cluster themselves last longer because flowers do not all fall at once. The first flowers that open are the first one to go, obviously, and the flower spikes don't all open at the same time. So overall, you can have a longer bloom display, but each individual flower really is not long-lasting. And it's not necessarily because my orchid is stressed or anything. Many articles do suggest that flowers are really not long-lasting. So it's up to you to decide if they are worth it or not. I do believe they're worth it. This orchid is pretty majestic if you have it in front of you, and imagining a better bloom display with more clusters of flowers it's pretty heavenly. If you Google the name and you see well-established orchids and healthy orchids, you'll see what I mean. It's absolutely fantastic. Too bad it doesn't have a fragrance, but just because mine isn't fragrant doesn't really mean none of them are fragrant, so you might be in luck if you like this orchid. Now, the older canes do appear to lose their leaves, so don't worry if you lose the leaves on this Dendrobium. They're supposed to go, but not before flowering. They might last on the orchid for a season at least, or 2 seasons, so we can call it semi-deciduous, but in the end it will lose its leaves. Only the new canes will have leaves. But the older canes can bloom as well. I do have some flower spikes on what appear to be older canes, so not a good idea to cut them off anyway. They can bloom at any time. And also this orchid can bloom at a much smaller size than this. This is a pretty mature orchid, but I did see videos with smaller amethystoglossums which had beautiful displays. Obviously not a whole lot of flower spikes, but it can bloom definitely at a younger age. So in my eyes, this orchid is a show orchid. When it blooms, then you'll have the show. But for the remainder of the year, it does have these really long and slender canes, so if you're not a really huge fan of this growth pattern or the other structures, then most of the time you will not enjoy this orchid, but when it blooms, it's pretty fantastic. So this is not a rare orchid. From what I see, a lot of stores have it. I'm sure you can find it at local nurseries or online stores if you just search for it. And as a difficulty rating, I don't find it a difficult orchid. From my short experience with it, but also from what I read in all the articles, it's one of those species that if you know a little bit about it, you shouldn't have a lot of problems growing it. And when it comes to blooming, it is very willing to bloom even in not ideal conditions, so I guess that makes it a little bit of a winner if you enjoy the flower display. As for me, I really do like it. It has that really beautiful contrast of a very light color with a more intense color. Flowers are pretty dainty. I don't like the fact that they're short-lived and they're not fragrant, but overall I can imagine a beautiful display next year, so fingers crossed we get a better display. But that was the Dendrobium amethystoglossum. A lot of people have it, a lot of people actually love it, so if you ever come across it at a good price, I say it's worth it. Mind you, you just need to have space on a vertical for it. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for daily orchids and plants videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! And here's a little sneak peek of another beautiful orchid that is opening now. I did film the process, kinda, of opening the buds. This is my Fragrant popoe, and the sepals are starting to extend. Now these sepals need to be longer than this, so they will continue growing most probably. This month I don't think we'll make a spotlight. I think it takes a while for them to grow, but we'll see, maybe next month. So far I am super intrigued by this orchid.